We only have to ask Kyrin if we have to talk in German or in English. Grüß dich, Dennis.
Grüß dich, Hans. Hallo, Thomas.
Hallo.
Dennis kommt von der Intelity und da sind wir ja nächste Woche. Vielleicht ein bisschen länger, heute die Kurzform.
Ui, werden wir getestet.
Genau, ich gucke heute schon mal, was ihr so liefert.
Ja, aber nicht beim Fragebogen dann nicht die Antworten aufschreiben, das kommt dann neu für euch, gell?
Haben wir eigentlich jetzt schon einen zweiten, Dennis?
Muss ich heute noch klären.
Okay.
Ich gebe heute
Wir
noch
haben
Bescheid.
uns schon drauf eingestellt, 1 oder 2 Stunden, ist kein Thema.
Superklasse.
Warten noch 1 Minute.
Yeah.
Please do it in English because we're going to be recording this for people who cannot join the call right now.
Okay.
That we can upload it in English afterwards. Thanks.
Starten, oder?
Eine Zeile ist noch zu sehen, die muss noch wegklicken da oben.
Muss ich noch wegklicken, ja.
That's that.
Okay, then very warm welcome to the next session. My name is Thomas Görles, and with me in the call is Hans Brender, and we're going to talk for the next roughly 45 minutes about the community bot for OneDrive.
Well,
good morning, Hans.
Good morning, Tommy, and good morning, all the attendees in the session.
Perfect. Then let me just focus on my PowerPoint again. Here we are. The three of us actually, Hans in the middle, me on the right-hand side, and my colleague Stefan on the left-hand side, we are all three MVPs in Microsoft internal and in 3 different categories: AI, Office apps and services, and Office development. And together as a team, we created the community bot for OneDrive. And to kick this session off, we would like to make a short recap about the history of the bot and how we developed it and what roadblocks or bumpers on the road to GA, so to general availability, we hit and how we overcome them. It all began, feels like years ago already, and it is actually 2 years ago, in a time where we still had the opportunity to meet in person. And my colleague Stefan and I, we did, or was it Stefan alone or together? It's hard to remember because we do so many sessions. We had a session in Vienna about bot development and what you can do with bot in Teams. And Hans was part of the audience at that day. And afterwards, as we always say, we really like the engagement in terms of from speaker to speaker to get really good feedback on the topic, on your presentation style, on your rhetoric, on your speech, all those components. And we are on a level where we can be really honest, because it's nice to hear when something works and it's good, but it's so much more interesting to focus on those spots and those areas where we can get better. And we had a nice discussion immediately after the session, and I think also in the evening and in the days to come, about what's the state of bot development, what can bots actually deliver in June 2019, and how much AI and how much assistance, how much help they can really be. And Hans, with his visionary view, already imagined a bot like a real assistant, and back then it was not really that easy to implement. Of course, you could always create everything by yourself, but in terms of the tooling, the framework and all the things provided by Microsoft, there are still, what's the euphemism? A lot of room for improvement. Let's put it in a positive vibe.
And I think that after 2 years, there's still a lot of room for improvement.
Still a lot of room. Yeah, that's true. We had then one of our next touch points or meetings was half a year later in Munich, and in between, Stefan and I over the summer had the idea of, let's take the knowledge of Hans and let's try to move that to an Q&A database so that we can make this knowledge accessible 24/7, 365 days, all year round to actually the globe, or what's it currently, 150 million daily users of Teams. So to make that knowledge accessible to everyone using, or potentially everyone using Teams. And in Munich, we didn't say a word before, and no. I think it was again after everyone did his or her own session, we were like, Hans, we want to show you something, or we want to talk to you about something, and that's where really the idea got started, and we got Hans on board, because we will see later on the bot is it's a technical tool actually to make the knowledge accessible, but someone has to fill in, I don't know, 650 or 700 questions and answers. So that's all Hans' work, and we just provide the infrastructure to be very precise. Nevertheless, we created the first name. There is a nice story to why Hans signs autograph cards with Mr. OneDrive. And that was the first idea of the name. He is known for that name. He's known as the subject matter expert in the community, but also within Microsoft through his work, providing great feedback to all the development steps that Microsoft takes. And so we started. We had a name, we had an idea, and as always, we started with the idea of making it multilingual already. So the idea was always to be reachable by everyone, but of course it's easier for us to start the knowledge database in German. So the idea was to start with German and then use various translation services, but be accessible in all the potential languages Azure or Microsoft understood at that time. Please.
First, you sent me an Excel sheet. And then I have to work with Excel.
Yeah, that's. We also have a pre-sales role, so we know how to lure people in. Yeah, that's correct. We started with an Excel sheet with just a column and said, okay, this is your question, this is your answer, and the Excel sheet actually in the back end pre-filled the Q&A maker. Q&A-maker.ai is one of Microsoft's services, like artificial intelligence as a service out of the cloud, where you basically, and we will see it later on, just provide question answers, and then this is accessible, or this is then trained, tested, and the algorithms behind it actually make the requests and answer the questions. But we started with German, and then pretty quick we realized, nope, we need to
it doesn't work.
move over and start with English, because English as the source, all the translation tools are way better. And I wouldn't be surprised if under the hood what Microsoft did was like using the German, translate it to English, and then translate from there, because many times we felt like, I think it was Tom Hanks, or Lost in Translation, something like that. Yeah. So not really a great experience. And we still, until today, we have an English and a German database, because German is our own language, and it's a different style, and it's way easier for us to express ourselves in German, and English is a second, and that's the idea for the translation that we have in mind already. But we created then one of the first what we called beta versions, and in terms of time frame, to give you an idea, all you see basically happened in free time. So it's not a work project. It's not something of our 9-to-5 job. This means like, okay, spending this evening, spending that evening, with all our family situations, with all the things in jobs, taking energy out. It's not that you can like streamline a kind of that project in a short time frame. If you would do it for a customer, it looks, of course, totally different. But for community project, it's always like, okay, we need to. I think back then we didn't even had regular calls. Now we are on a weekly basis to just spin around ideas and move the thing forward. But nevertheless, we managed to get out the first release, and I think we had like 100 people around the world testing it, giving us feedback, especially on the translation. Through the MVP community, we had people that tested the tool in Polish, in Portuguese, in Dutch, in all, basically in I'm not 100% sure. Dipti is tested in Hindu.
In Hindi,
I would guess, but I'm way too less knowledge about the exact languages everyone speaks in India. So different types, and then we tried to submit the first release to Microsoft because the idea was to be accessible in the Teams App Store.
Yeah, before we start with the App Store, we have to say, okay, there is also a time that was in Bremen where we have released the beta version, and then we saw a little bit that it's not good because if the Q&A maker, I have a lot of trouble with Markdown. I fight with Markdown because I cannot say, okay, it's only text. I will format the text. You will see that later on live. And that means in several languages like Dutch, like Portuguese or something, it will work correctly what we want to intend. But not for some East languages like Polish, like Slovakian, and also. So we have to say, okay, in March, before the first release, we do not want to do that. That's a little bit complicated because we have text and we have format the text with several format options, and it was absolutely chaos what comes up if we translate it automatically and see what has happened with the original English text translated to the original language, and it was horrible. Therefore, in March we say no, we want to do it in 2 languages.
True, and it's we I think we didn't test it the last couple of months, but it was a really Markdown. For example, you use 2 or 3 asterisks to mark something. Let's say, for example, if you want to make the word OneDrive bold, so you use 2 asterisks up front and then behind the word again. And it's interesting if you take this combination, 2 asterisks, the word 2 asterisks, and throw it into the Azure translator, and it comes back with spaces in various translations. So the formatting would be mixed up. That's why we actually quit the idea pretty soon. But still, if we have time in the next couple of months, we will try again. And maybe we will try not only the Microsoft translation service, but there are other cloud vendors as well. Maybe some of them are better in terms of translating. We wouldn't mind. It's just the feature that we want to have in the system.
And Microsoft also has the same thing in docs.microsoft.com in all the documentation. So sometimes they were translated to another language automatically. They have some engines that will work coming from English, translated to German, but sometimes the engines have also some problems. I found the bug in links with some hashtags in it, and I submitted it to Microsoft and say, hey, there are an error in there, and the guys know me, and then they say, okay, I have searched, and that's an engine problem. We have 3,200 pages with this hashtag issue. So it's not only of OneDrive. Sometimes Microsoft also has this problem, what's coming out, to see if you translate it automatically.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so back to the to the slide or to the bullet point, we submitted the first release through the official channels, meaning we wanted to achieve that our application is accessible through the Teams App Store. And yeah, this was like a journey in itself. We started it. You need to fill out a form with close to 80 questions around monetization, around GDPR, and all that stuff. That's totally fine. But we are a community project, so first of all, we don't want to make any money out of it. So all those questions was like no. It felt a little bit like traveling to the US and filling out the visa or all those things. Like no, we don't want to get in touch with those things. And then we had a challenge also with the legal department, because Mr. OneDrive Spot was still our name, and Microsoft doesn't like if you use a product name in your own product. So OneDrive, was an issue for Microsoft, and then we had, not only because of this, but also in order to get the process a little bit faster or a speed boost, we reached out to Connections and looped in, and it's a little bit hard to really need that, but we looped in someone even from the vice president board of OneDrive to get things moving again, and he actually came up with the idea, why not call it Community Bot for OneDrive?
Hey,
and
there's OneDrive in there.
Yes, but now it comes from Microsoft, so we are good for or with that. So then we had a name, but we still had still a lot of fighting with Microsoft in terms of, okay, this Teams submission team, and again, the naming of a product with a word like Teams is not so cool, but the Teams submission team, it's a global team, meaning they have like shifts, what you call in industry, follow the sun. So there are a couple of people in all, I think, split it up like 4 to 6 hours, and basically depending on your local time, if you reach out to that mailbox, you will address different people behind that. That's okay. That's the deal. If you work with a global corporation, that's all good. But we, as always, soon realized that we start basically a thread every day new with a new person. No history, no going back to what we already discussed, not really understanding what we're trying to achieve, and it was a lot of back and forth. And I think we had 2 times we really had to be a little bit harsh, because just to give you an idea, we got told by someone that was not able to speak German how we should address our users in German. And that's a little bit, that's a little bit tough, because they follow a protocol, they follow a process, and you could see that from their answers, but doesn't make always sense. In the end, after a couple of weeks back and forth, we managed to check all the boxes, and I think after the final mail, it was like 48 hours or 24 hours or something like that, 1 or 2 days. And since then, the bot is available in the App Store for everyone to use.
For free.
For free, of course. Yep. Okay, let's make that quick in terms of the technical part. What we actually do use in terms of Teams is just one part of the Teams platform. In the Teams platform, you can create commands and actions to extend the UI, the UX of Teams a little bit to make it more interactable. Bots and connectors, we will have a close look on the bot later on. Tabs and model pop-ups, that's all the pages. And then, of course, the seamless integration with other parts. Most of the extensions, applications, enhancements, whatever you want to call them, you create for Teams are on top of the Microsoft Graph. That makes sense if your tool reaches data or wants to read data and write data inside the Microsoft 365 world. So that's a Microsoft slide. So of course they assume that everyone uses Microsoft Graph. If your Teams application uses your third-party CRM system or your own creation, of course you reach out to those services and not to Graph. But hey, that's the slide. Bot Framework SDK, very important, like the glue in between Azure and our bot in terms of communication and development templates, and of course in use and reach across devices. You can interact with the bot on your laptop, on your PC, and of course in the browser and on the phone. As we all know, Teams has versions for all the different devices. They are, and we will see later on, they are different, of course. So this means for us, it's not just right once, and we are all happy. We have some issues in how the mobile client displays images and how the desktop client visualizes an image, but we will see that in the example. I think it's easier to make that point there. Of course, Microsoft is focusing on enterprise developers, IT admins, and ISVs, independent solution vendors, so people that really create apps and want to get their cash flow by selling their apps. Interesting part, IT admins, if you are working in an organization where you might not have access to the App Store and you're not allowed to install something, you will not find the OneDrive bot in your App Store. So you would need to talk to IT people and say, okay, there's this cool application team store, because they can make that available. It's a good governance practice to not allow everyone to install all the applications out there, but then you need the process to make your voice heard as an end user, that you might be interested in one or two specialized apps, for example, the bot for OneDrive. And then, of course, you can have some certificates and nice, I think it's a blue check mark on your app if you have the exam and did the right testing for your bot. Let me just jump to a different slide, because we want to make sure that we have also a lot of time for a demo. That's basically the overall architecture on a very high level. We start with a user that has a question and asks the Teams client, or in the Teams client, our bot, and the Teams client then routes the text, the message, the question to the Azure Bot Framework, and in the Azure Bot Framework, our bot logic runs. It's nothing more than a web application from a high-level perspective, and the bot logic then tries to make sense of your question in terms of, okay, is this a command? Because we have at the moment the command of change language or help, or is it really a question? And if we think, okay, your input fulfills all the requirements we have for a question, we then reach out to the Q&A maker, and the Q&A maker basically takes your question and gives us back the answer it thinks fits the question the most. We will see later on there is a score included, and you can test this also in the Q&A maker. But then we get back our answer from the Q&A maker. We fiddle around a little bit with the formatting of images to make sure that everything works, and then through the bot framework we go back to the end user. This is the version right now. At the moment, at step 3, we make the decision, did you choose English or German? And based on that decision, we route the request to different Q&A maker instance. The aspired state, or what we are aiming for, is that at step 3, for example, you ask your question in French. We don't have a Q&A database in French, and we most probably will never have one. But the idea is that we take your French question, translate it to English, ask the Q&A service with the English question, get back the English answer from the Q&A server, translate that back to French, and then serve you the French answer. That's the goal that we have in mind. But again, we had some troubles, not actually with the translating, with the quality of the translation, more of how the translation works for markdown text in terms of formatting. That's still not so easy, because we will see later on, we work with images, we work with Hans marks different words bold, and this would, we would need to get rid of all the formatting in all other languages, and that's really yeah, it's a feature. We think that's important for the UX point, but not so easy for the translation service right at the moment. Okay, and with that, we are in the demo part. The challenge of fake or real. The idea is that we have now a couple of slides in there with multiple questions, and we will have like a short, yeah, is it a race or a test or a game or a competition, whatever you want to call it. We will try out different words, and we will see, okay, Hans tries to explain it when he sees the question, and I will try the bot, and then you will not only get the knowledge about the OneDrive question, but we will also talk about the different steps in the bot and how we made it actually. Okay. For that, I will keep my PowerPoint open because we have all those questions in here. But let me just quickly jump over to one instance of the bot, and let me remove that screen over here. I'm using now just the version in one of my web browsers, because the proper Teams client version, I'm just in that call right now, and it's easier for me to use that. I tried it already in German. Let me change the bot language to English, as we're recording this in English right now. So I'm switching to English, and then we are ready to go. And the first phrase, the first interesting topic, Hans.
Yeah.
What's the state? What's the message around password protection in OneDrive?
Yeah, I can say it's easy. If you share a file with other people, with external, you can have and handle MFA for dummies password. So you can have that, and that means the receiver also have to have the password, whatever the password is. Therefore, I say dummies, that's not MFA. Then you have to see only these external people can reach the document in there. So people have to see, yes, that with Office documents it will come, and therefore it's a good thing.
Okay. In the meantime, you see that the bot, of course, answered the question as well, and I just wrote in password protection, but let us try something else. More like a question. You see, it gets back the same answer. We realized in our testing, and we see that also from talking with our users, that most of the time, if you ask a bot, you don't really formulate like a nice question like you would to a human being. You just throw in some words like we all used to use our search engines.
So you can also give him a question. Normally, you have told earlier that we have around 700 questions in there. So many questions come to one answers. And the thing is, you have to decide, as you're sitting in front, that the people, the normal users, have no idea. Sometimes the people have to ask, what's the difference? We will see that with OneDrive and OneDrive for Business. And sometimes the people are also ask several things. Type in Hans, and you will get an answer if you type in Hans. And because the bot realized it. And sometimes I know this is a question about me. Okay, that's in there. But I tried the last thing with Tommy, and I have to say Tommy. And Tommy is only in the answer, in the question, in the answer in there. And he realized the Q&A maker and artificial intelligence, it will come. So they have all of the answer about both the developers and so on. And that's very interesting to see this Tommy that he has here in bold, and it's a link into versions directly where he has to go. But anyway, that's the only word with Tommy is in there in the answer. And although the bot is realizing that, therefore it's fantastic. It's not in there. We have nothing to pray. If you ask me about whiskey or gin, then you see a typical other answer, because the bot never knows me or my special things, what I want. No, sorry.
Sorry.
That's privacy.
Yeah. Okay, let's go for another one. And we will make that slide, of course, available, so we have the all the demos in there. An important question always with OneDrive is, okay, what's the sizing? What's the storage limit? How big can we go with the cloud? It's just like more storage, right?
Yeah. It's about storage. So you have several storage limits. The thing is, if you talk to storages, you have to ask which tenant are you using. You use an E3 plan or E5 plan or small business, all these variants. And sometimes the people has to say, hey, I'm using OneDrive Personal, and therefore it's a different answer that you have to see. Now you see the first thing. To say, yes, with an E3 plan, you have 5 terabytes, but normally only you have 1 terabyte. And thinking about all these rules, there are some good documentation, because we do not want to have all the questions in there. The most important thing is that Microsoft has many questions and many answers in your documentation. And we only decided to have docs.microsoft.com in the documentation, or what I have written an article about that in person. So therefore they have the pictures, and you see the picture is small, but you can click on the picture and you will get also the information what there. That's about the, not only for business storage, that's about versioning and all this stuff. Therefore I have this picture made. And you see although that the error here, that you have the space below the thing, because Teams has to say, yes, this is space. It's not me that we have so much space, because they say only it's a square and not normally what we have 16:9 pictures. So there's an error there, and we hope that we find the correct programmer who do that. And if you do have the same question in your smartphone, they do it correct, because it's another development team, and they do it correct, and they can absolutely. And you find also something that you see as a follow-up.
Yep, you see multiple things in that answer. Actually, we have a follow-up prompt, but before we look at the follow-up prompt, just to give you an idea in terms of, okay, we use the formatting here. So Hans tried to make it clear about the sizing, but as he also said, we have multiple links in there to the OneDrive documentation and to his blog in English or in German. And we even found a way how we could make that docs.microsoft.com link multilingual, because you can, if you look at that link, if you just change the local information, you can actually get the Portuguese version or the Chinese version or the Japanese version. So that's also in our mind already. Then we have this nasty whitespace bug in Teams desktop and browser version, but not on the mobile. And then follow-up prompts. So if I click now this button here, technically what it does basically is that the Teams client then just types in another question and immediately sends it to the bot. So in the bot backend, we just get another question. But what you can do is then that you make like this, okay, this let's say it with another idea in mind, like people that are interested in that question are also interested in this question. We all know what we're referring to, but same idea. So, okay, you talked about storage in OneDrive. So how about storage in SharePoint Online? And then we have the same idea, again, an answer, a nice graphic, and then, yeah, a backlink. Okay, people that ask about storage in SharePoint Online, we can go back and say, okay, what's the thing in OneDrive again? That's a nice way of guiding or moving, helping in terms of navigation for the end user, and to get a better experience of the bot.
So for all answers, you have to use an Excel sheet and make all these versions the correct answer, or the answer what will come up, and then you can have references. Otherwise, you have no chance to bring it over that you have these versions and bring it. That's not automatically. If you have to say that will done, you have to do it per your own, and therefore I tried with an Excel sheet and it works.
Yep. So actually, let's have a look at what it looks in the backend. This is now the German version, because I thought that we will have this talk in German. Just give me a second to switch to the English version, because it makes more sense. This is the live data, actually, the knowledge base. We can search in here. You see here a context source, all the different questions, and then the answers. And we could test also the bot in here. So I forgot, of course, I think it was storage limits, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Storage.
No, 64. Yeah, the storage limits. Yes, that we have.
So we see here what we get back, and the interesting part here is that we can also click on inspect, so we can look a little bit under the cover of what happened in the backend, and then you see, okay, the system is 58% or 58.8% confident that this answer answers the question with storage limits. There are also different answers there, so you can test and train and see, okay, how should we formulate questions, what do we get back, and all those things. And here you see actually what's in the plain text, like before it's transformed through Markdown. That's how it's really in the plain text in there. You see the score here, and we also, and that's actually, yeah, that's a little bit in annoyance in the UI here. You have to click this button to make it visible, and then it's just this small error that changes and it goes away again. That takes some testing. But here you see that multiple questions can refer to one answer. So it's also a task to make the answer or the knowledge accessible through different questions, different lines of inquiry, so to speak. And also very interesting, Hans, yeah, created a special number or numeric representation of every question, because with that we communicate like something, okay, there's a bug with E119. And so we can just type in E119, and we are the only ones that, or you are knowing that the one number, but by just referring to the number, we can then easier or precise make sure that we get back the same answer and test all those things on the different devices.
We have to say on the left side, you see the questions, but the question must not be exact that you have to write. Therefore, we use artificial intelligence. And although that we showed with Tommy mentioned before, that is although in the answer. And now you see, although here, this right is, it's well formatted and looks well formatted. But in the meantime, they have given this Q&R editor an editor for Q&R, and therefore it's a little bit easier to do that. And we can use that, but not completely, because sometimes for the resolution or the output in Teams, you have to have some special characters in there. Otherwise, you will have not the correct formatting in Teams.
Yep, that's the Q&A maker service is not a service that is in any way, shape, or form connected to the Teams organization. That's something that comes out of the Azure product group, and we just use it in our Teams client as a consumer client, basically. So of course there are some troubles with interpretation, and from the outside, we talk to one team in Microsoft that creates the Q&A maker, and then we talk to the other team in Microsoft that creates the Teams experience in chat, and try to make them understand how their work is not really aligned in very specific parts, like images and formatting. But also what we see here is the follow-up prompt. So you see, for example, for this question, where Hans talks about classic sync add to OneDrive. We have our questions here, we have the answer here, and this is where we also, or Hans actually references all the follow-up prompts, and this configuration makes it possible that for an answer, you also get those follow-up prompts. Okay, what's the next? Also an interesting one. Allowed file types.
Yeah, in OneDrive you have some special things that not all file types are allowed. Thinking about if you have a database, let's say from the past Access, and you put the Access into the OneDrive, it will not work. Or have a PST file. If the PST file is solo, means not attached to Outlook, then it's okay. But if it's attached, it will work and it will change quicker than the synchronization will come up. So therefore, you should not have that. And there are some types. And sometimes you also can manually do that. If you have some games or something else, you can have these answers, although, and exclude the files, the new files that will come and will not synchronize from this machine or from all your machines to the cloud. That's a group policy. And therefore, you can handle that for the complete people that you want to have, or you can do that on your own machine and tested it with the wildcards. There are several special things you can have in production. If a file will always numbers out there, and with the wildcards, that's a most important thing, that we do not want to have all these data in the cloud. It's only on your machine.
Okay, I think in terms of how the bot operates and works, it's pretty clear. Let's move back to the Q&A reference. Just browsing through those files. So did you get an idea what we talk in terms of knowledge and how deep and how broad we are? I'm scrolling down here. You see add shortcut to my drive. The help is in here in different ways. OneDrive Basic, always with formatting, personal, and then down there you see that we have like 12 of those pages. So just clicking through 4, video, organizing and find photos, what happens when you delete files. The idea behind all those questions is that we are targeting end users. So the bot as an audience is focused on end users, and that is something that we needed to change our way of thinking, because in consultancy gigs or at conferences, most of the time we are talking to IT people, guys and girls that run OneDrive in companies, that help deployments of OneDrive. So IT focus and those kind of people have a different area of interest in OneDrive compared to end users. So we did a lot of research actually in terms of what are people searching in Google, and if you look at their tools for how to search for terms in Google, and most of the the terms in OneDrive are not related to IT at all. They are just related to how do I use this client? How do I sync files? How do I share something? And that's the intention of all the questions in there, to be really an assistant to the end user. And of course, there are, I think sometimes I think it's Hans' last topic.
Group policies, yeah.
Policies.
So he knows a lot of stuff also from the IT, and that was in there because then I found out and have done this research and have looked. That's not the people no one like, but you have the group policies in there, and you can also have Jeff Teeper answers. I have connected him to say the bot is live, and he says, okay, where are the other people, because he do not know all the MVPs, therefore on different ones. And then he has to say, hey, and if we bring something out, for example, add a shortcut to my files. And that means you have to write something in the database, and that's available then after and immediately. And I have to say yes. So that's for us. We do not have to implement. And yesterday I talked to another person and I have to say, going back in the past, we have a disk, we have a CD to implement. We have from a network share to implement on each version, each new version to start on each device. And now you have one submission, and then the database. You change the database and has nothing to do. So add shortcut to the files, on the other hand, is new. You do not find several things at Microsoft because they have no time to implement that. But it's a newer thing with OneDrive, and therefore you have all the only articles from me, because I have sent it to the documentation team, but they have to read, and they have so much to change that, and it's very interesting to see that.
Okay, we are hitting the time limit. Is 11:45 now. In the respect of the time from everyone, I think the idea, or at least I hope we got the idea across in terms of the demo part. Go search in your Teams client for the Community bot for OneDrive. If it's available, install it and try to get some questions answered. Otherwise, you can always talk to your IT department to make that app available in your app store. And with that, big thank you for your time, and hope to see you soon.
Are there any questions?
Oh, Dennis corrected me. I made a movie reference, and it wasn't Tom Hanks, it was Bill Murray.
Oh.
Yep. Yeah, Tom Hanks is the other movie where he is stuck in an airport. And
Yep.
Lost in Translation is the movie in I think in Japan. Yep, that's correct. My mistake. Sorry.
Yep.
So in the chat